Hello, welcome to the Learning Pro Live. My name's Cath Ellis, and I'm so glad to be back here. Isn't it great? End of the week, got the weekend free. To kind of wrap the end of this week, we're going to talk about a topic that I just love. I get a lot of people reaching out to me talking about this topic. You know, how do I go from full-timer to freelancer? So I couldn't think of a better person than Ashley Chaisson. So welcome, Ashley. Thank you so much for, taking your time out to come along and have a chat with me about this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you're working full-time right now, Ashley. Do you want to actually just you tell people about yourself? You know, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who do know you because you're a pretty regular face out there, but introduce yourself.
So I'm Ashley Chaisson, and I'm the senior eLearning developer here at Reliant, where we kind of develop binge-worthy compliance training. That's our shtick. So in relation to freelancing, I work full-time for Reliant, but I also maintain a few small projects on the side and get to dip my toes into the freelance world every now and again.
Yeah. So you're kind of in a very similar situation to me because I work for my wife's company as well, and you're obviously working for your company and then take on gigs as and when we need to. I've normally got a gig pretty much going all the time, but we were talking about burnout before. We'll talk about that later on, but sometimes it can be hard work, can't it?
Exactly.
So when did you start? When was your first full-time gig? How long had you been in the industry?
So I started instructional design almost 15 years ago now. I didn't know what instructional design was. I had actually quit my job for the first time in my life while I was applying for grad school I wanted to be a speech language pathologist. And while I was unemployed, one of my girlfriends had said, "Hey, I'm an instructional designer at this company. I think you're kind of smart. You could do this. So come in for an interview." And I went in for an interview and I got the job because I think they thought I could speak a bunch of different languages, and I can't. They didn't ask. I didn't tell. But I started working for that company and then really fell in love with all things instructional design, e-learning development, did my master's of ed, and I actually started freelancing while I was working at that company.
Yeah, cool. So first freelance job. So do you know what we'll do before we get in? I'll just introduce a few people who are tuning in and saying good day. So we've got Asia saying hello, Olivia saying fun Friday, Tom, hi both, great topic, really looking forward to this. And Olivia saying, wow, that's progressive. Laughing at you, I think. So first freelance, like how did you know it was time? I think a lot of people are in this position right now. You know, they're going, ooh, don't quite know whether I should do it or not. When was your time?
Well, so initially freelancing for me it had a very specific goal. So I started freelancing with the goal of paying off my student debt. And so I went to the bid sites and did all kinds of really terrible, awful, non-instructional design jobs, and paid off my debt. And then I vowed off freelancing. I was like, never going to do that again. That was terrible. I think one of my main bid site jobs was writing assessment questions for all of the state's driver's exams. And so I had written, I think, over 5,000 assessment items, and it was just, I was tapped out. So then I stayed at my job for probably another year before I thought about freelancing again. And then when I thought about it, I said, I really like what I do. I think I have skills that I can bring to market and be successful. or at least help other organizations with their instructional design and e-learning development. And so that's really when I started focusing on getting a website, getting portfolio, branding, all of that jazz. And I kind of knew it was time, to answer your question. I knew it was time when I'd been with that company for about 5 years, and I was at the point in my journey with them that there was very little room for progression. And I was also interested in shifting from I was working in defense, so I was working with military contracting. And I was interested in moving towards higher ed and that world. So that's kind of what I was focusing on a little bit.
Cool. So first job that came in, and I'm asking you because I think this is going to help people. And I'll tell my story in a minute, but did your first job come through your website, or did your first job come through, so other than you going to look for work, did you have clients reaching out to you via LinkedIn, or was it via your website? How did that work?
So
was it a referral?
For me, I did have a few referrals. I can't quite remember the first one. I have a hard time remembering what I did last week, let alone 10 plus years ago. But so I'm not certain about the first job, but it was very early days with LinkedIn. And so I don't even think my presence on LinkedIn was really doing anything at that point, or it was minimal. And the same with Twitter, but I was very active on Articulate's community at that time. And I was getting referrals from there. And I was also getting most of my inquiries from my website. I just had a contact form and a work with me section. And that's where I would get most of my inquiries.
Yeah. You guys should actually take a look at Ashley's website. It's really nice, really clean. I've seen it over the years. You just keep changing it, refining it. It looks really lovely. I'm on it frequently because I'm always looking to see what people are doing. So that's really interesting. Olivia's saying, so she actually is obviously interested in the ed space because she said language ed is still a fast growing space. She said 15 years in the industry is massive. And she said, did you make the transition to higher ed, and which space do you work in now?
So right now I did make the transition to higher ed. So I had actually left the military contracting company to freelance full time, and I was doing contracts and was feeling very validated in my move. And one of the things I had done years before leaving was I cold emailed all of the institutions in our city, which in Nova Scotia there's a lot of universities and colleges. It's just we have a lot of educators in Nova Scotia. And so in my head, I thought, I could do so much for your online, like your distance learning programs. I could help put your courses online. Like, why don't you have more selection? And so I cold emailed everybody and just kind of said, this is what I think I could do for your organization. And 5 years later, the director of continuing education at a local university reached out to me, and she said, hey, do you want to come in for an interview? I was so jaded or not jaded, but naive at the time. I didn't realize that the reason why I wasn't getting pickups from those cold emails was because I was waiting for the one person to vacate their position. So I was the sole instructional designer at that institution. So I stayed there for a few years and freelance while I was doing that. And then I transitioned from the university to a college, and I actually still do contracts with them.
Oh, they probably weren't ready for you as well.
Sorry?
I said they probably weren't ready for you as well.
I think I had a little too much like get up and go and pep, because if anybody's ever worked in government or higher education, Things move very slowly. I don't know, probably not right now in the current climate, but yeah, things are a lot slower than most corporate gigs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that leads quite nicely into my story, because I was in government. But we've got, you will not be surprised, Miss Cara North. Yeah, Ashley and Cath. And she said, yeah, that's about right for higher ed. Now, Maria has jumped on, and she said, how important is a portfolio if you're starting out? Or what if you only have a few actual projects to showcase? So this is a really hot topic right now. There's certain people out there who are really pro portfolio. You know, Devlin, Tim Slade just did his latest Ask the Trainer, in which he was talking about portfolios. And then you've got a lot of people, and I'm not going to mention any names, who are quite anti needing a portfolio. So I did have a portfolio, and I had built it really so. I was in government, and I built it so that when I went for interviews, I had something interactive to show. And it was really like an online resume that had portfolio items. It was like a WordPress theme that I had bought. And even though I never said I was a freelancer, I was getting lots of people reaching out through my website, so much so that, come on, Cath, mention names. Cara North, I bloody will not, right? But I basically was just getting so many requests, and from big government departments, and you know, I was just like, you know, I can do it, but I need to do it in the evenings or on weekends, and that's not going to work for you. And my wife just said, you're actually knocking back too much work. You know, you're getting frequent requests through the website. So I said, okay. And I think I actually started out doing some work for eLearning Brothers. So I can't remember who it was who put out a request saying we're looking for designers. And I said, well, maybe this is a safe way. I just stay working where I'm working, and I'll take on a few projects. And that was great, you know, because of the time difference, Australia, you know, late at night, I'd work really late into the night, and kind of balance my time that way. And I did projects, and I was like, well, that worked really well. And it got to the point where I had taken on a number of things. They'd all come through the website. I felt confident the website was doing the job for me. And now I've never looked for a job. It's all come through the website, or it's come through LinkedIn, but the majority of it is coming through the website. So, you know, that was my approach. And it sounds like you kind of had your portfolio ready to go. And portfolios can come in different forms, you know, like you said, Articulate Heroes is, if you've got a good portfolio on Articulate Heroes as well, that will lead to great work as well. So Maria, I hope that helps a little bit with how important is a portfolio. I think having a few bits up is pretty important. What's your thoughts, Ashley?
I mean, I really, anyone who knows me and any of the topics I speak on, I often lecture about portfolios and the importance of them. And I go at it more from I don't know, it's kind of like when you watch a vlog, somebody doing a vlog on YouTube, their job to get the views is to show what they're doing, not to talk about what they're doing. And so the portfolio really, once I had a few pieces in there, started working for me. And a lot of people have concerns about have controlled goods, I
IP.
have an NDA, I can't share, but you can take time to be creative and come up with a few things on your own based off of maybe things that were NDA. I mean, there's no intellectual property or no copyright on tabbed interactions and things like that. So
No, absolutely.
I do think it's important. Recently, when I've looked at hiring folks, and I've been sifting through applications and resumes for the skill set that I was looking for, it really was paramount to have a portfolio because it helped me determine, okay, well, I see what they can do. They may not be discussing certain things that I'd like to hit on in an interview, but based on this interaction, I can see that they know how to use X, Y, and Z of the application we need them to use. So
Yeah.
it's really important to kind of show folks what you are capable of doing, and you don't need to have it doesn't need to be a 2-hour course in there. It's just a few slide demo or even screenshots talking through what you did and why and the logic.
And the first place that I wouldn't say I met you, Ashley, but I became aware of you was, of course, Articulate, the Articulate Heroes. And you used to do a lot of the challenges. And to be honest, guys, like some of my very early pieces were Articulate challenges. Like if you look in my portfolio, the Lego mini kit, the minifigure game. There was a kind of switcher game or matching game. And I put those up because I worked for the police. I couldn't share their IP. You worked in government as well. You couldn't share it. And I say to people all the time, like, just think about what you're interested in. Think about the kind of work you want to do and create that work. Even if you've never done it, you can create it. Who's stopping you? Just create it, put it on your portfolio, and state that it's a concept piece and what was the idea behind it. I can guarantee you, well, actually, I won't talk on your behalf, Ashley, but when you're looking at people's portfolios, the way I look at people's portfolios is I'm just looking at the visuals a lot of the time. I'm really not digging too deep into the text. It's visual. Oh, they've got a good eye for design. They understand, people's brands. They understand alignment and good user experience. It says so much without you having to dig deep. What do you think about that, Ashley?
Exactly. Yeah. For me, it's very visual. I'm looking for the mechanics. So good visual design for me is great. It's a nice to have. You can usually work with some folks to enhance their visual design if necessary. So for me, I'm always looking for, oh, how did they do that? Or that looks complex. I think they would have had to do X, Y, or Z to get from start to finish for this interaction. And so I'm always looking at the mechanics.
Yeah. Olivia's saying an interactive portfolio sounds fantastic. Olivia, it would be good to hear from you. And also, Maria, I should have asked you, do you have a portfolio or what's holding you back doing it? If you haven't got one, Olivia, you let us know as well. Cara, she says, I don't understand the rationale of not having a portfolio. If it's your profession, why would you not want to showcase your skill? I mean, I keep saying this like a broken record. If I want to, it's a little bit different for some topics, but if I'm looking for a service, for example, I'm looking for a fence to be built. I always use this example. I want to see examples of products, of projects that they've worked on, because it gives me the confidence that they've done it. Now, it's very hard to do that with a gutter cleaner or so on and so forth. But you know what? Nearly every business, no matter what they're doing, you go onto their Google profile and Google Business, and that could be the way that they're advertising. They're advertising there and they're putting pictures up of gutter cleaning before and after, or, you know, plumbers might be, you know, it doesn't really matter. People are always showcasing the kind of work that they can do, because I think it gives confidence. And for learning and development, I actually feel like I was one of the early ones with a portfolio. You were too. I mean, I signed up for your course. Ashley had a. Do you still have your course up?
I do. It's very dated, I will say. So it's on my to-do list to overhaul.
But Ashley did. She had a course straight off. You know, God, how long ago, Ashley? 6 years, 5 years?
Gosh, it must be more. It was basically, I made a free course out of the blog posts that I had cobbled together over the years about building your portfolio. So it's really like the visuals in there are, it's not great, but there's good advice in there. So
there is, you know, I looked at advice from Ashley's course all those years way back. But it's really about looking to see what other people are doing. Go and look at Ashley's site. Go and look at Tim Slade's, Devlin Peck's, you know, all the great portfolios that are out there, and see how they're doing it. Maria has said, she just said, I don't have one yet live, but I'm working on one. I have 3 projects on there. My others are DNA, so I cannot use them, but I will make a few samples to add. I think that's a good idea, Maria, and put the kind of work up that you want to do rather than, it's hard at first, because maybe you'll go, but it's only 3 pieces there. You go, yeah, but you don't want to put up pieces of the kind of work that you don't want to do, you know. And certainly this is supposed to be a big thing, right? Going from full-time to freelance. This is a work-life balance. Now, in some cases, like today, I was up at 8 and it's now nearly 10, and I have not really stopped. And yesterday I was talking all day. My wife was like, she actually sent me a message, can you stop talking? Right, because all she could hear was my voice reverberating around the house. So there are the days that are great, you know, of course, lockdown and making the most of it. I'm just working. But you want to try and enjoy the projects that come through. So, you know, guys, you're all very quiet. Let us know where you're at the moment. You don't have to disclose whether you know, if it's something that you want to do now. You know, you can let us know, this is something that I'm thinking about, and these are some of the worries. You've got us here that will answer your questions. So want to try and leverage on that as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information. There's definitely things that when I first started freelancing, things I wish I knew then that I know now. Yeah. And so whenever I speak on freelancing, I always talk about like the kind of some things I learned and things about taxes and stuff that's not super exciting and fun, but that if someone were to tell me way back then that like I was reporting my taxes properly, I would have felt so much less anxious. Or if someone were to break down how I figure out my rate, or even a ballpark of how I can figure out my rate, that would have saved me a lot of heartache in the first few years of, okay, well, I'm going to take on every single project I can because I don't want to default on my mortgage and I want my animals to have food in their bowls. But realizing that if you just price yourself appropriately, you don't need to burn yourself out like that. So I don't know what a 1099 versus W-2 is. I know a W-2, that's so I'm in Canada. I think that's the equivalent to our T4, which would be the tax document you get as a full-time employee. So is a 1099 kind of the self-employed equivalent to that? Kara?
Yeah, look it up. 1099 versus.
It's really
This
early.
is all jargon to me. W2.
You're throwing out all of these numbers right now.
So we'll come back to this. We're gonna. Oh, here you go. So I looked up. I'm not sure if this is going to help, Cara, but I'm going to share my screen a second. What's the difference between W2 employees and 1099 contractors?
Okay.
You might want to check out this website. So this was Square. I'll put the I'll post the comments so you can take a look at it, Cara.
Yeah, I mean, if it's what I think it is, where a W-2 is like a full-time employee and a 1099 is strictly like you're freelancing, your contractor. I think the pros of being a full-time employee is that you usually get some sort of benefits. Like, I don't know, if you're in the States, maybe you get a 401k, or in Canada, you get pension contributions. In Canada, our healthcare is covered under like by the organizations or institutions usually. They automatically deduct taxes every pay. So those would be some pros. And you also get paid consistently. Whereas if you're freelancing, it could be like you could have a client that pays you like per project. So it could be at the end of the project. You could have a client that pays you weekly or monthly or biweekly. You could have a client that has a net 30, net 60, net 90, which means you're not going to get paid for at least 30 to 60 to 90 days after you invoice. 1099. Okay.
Yeah, so Brenton's saying it's 1099 is essentially when you aren't technically an employee but are still being paid by a company. So does that make sense?
It confuses things a bit more for me. If I'm being honest, because here we would have like a T4 and a I don't know what the number is for self-employed. And it seems a little less convoluted than in the States. But the main difference for me is that I have to make all of my contributions as a freelancer. Like, I'm paying my business, I'm paying my taxes. That means I have a tax account where I'm setting aside money every time it comes in. I had to figure out what my percentage was to be in the proper tax brackets so that I don't owe a boatload of money next March. And then you also have to pay yourself for things like healthcare, your retirement savings, if you want to contribute to that. If you know you're going to need to take time off at some point, you might want to tuck away some money for that. So every time I get paid, I manually take all of that out and put it in different accounts, because I don't have an organization that's doing that for me.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't do that, and they get a giant tax bill and are scared.
Yeah. I mean, look, it is those are the scary things. And I was saying to thank you very much, I should say, to Brenton for explaining that. Oh, he just added another thing. Yes, for 1099, you would pay your own employee taxes. As a W-2 employee, the employer takes a lot of those costs. So I'm in a situation where I work for I have a disability company as well that I do. I'm the learning design manager for that. So I am getting a wage. I am getting superannuation. So superannuation is like a retirement fund. They're paying my tax. Okay. And I'm also doing, is that right? I can't remember. Anyway, I'm also doing freelance work. So there's some niceties to that, in which I know that I'm kind of, my tax is being paid on some of my money, and the rest of it is needing to be squirreled away like you do, Ashley. I put it in another kind of bank account whenever I do a job. But it gets a bit complicated, guys, because we have GST here.
Yeah,
So Yeah. So you're not only thinking about, okay, I've got to put my GST away. When you earn over a certain amount of money, you actually have to do it here in Australia, tax returns every quarter.
Yep.
And you do your every year. And it's not something that's going to be the scare. Look, that is honestly going to be the thing that's going to induce panic attacks a little bit when you get started. Because, but I wasn't very good at it. And I had to kind of go to my tax man and say, need a little bit of help here. I'm a little bit behind. And they are somewhat forgiving, if you can say, I've had some things, like when I started my business, my dad died. So, they understand that you've got things going on in your life that, you're not perfect. So just be as honest as possible and let people know how you're going. But it is a good idea for you to have those. Most bank accounts are pretty good now. You can build multiple kind of accounts. You can put some away on a rainy day, etc.
The other thing with like GST and all of that stuff, because I'm not sure if it's the same in Australia, but people don't realize that anything that you pay GST on that's a business expense, the GST you collect, they can kind of offset one another. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes, I mean, if you're really great with taxes, do it yourself, fine. It took me a really long time to get an accountant that deals with my box of papers that I give him at the end of every year. And he's 150% worth it, because he ends up saving me money because he knows this stuff. I don't know this stuff.
Yeah. But you see, everything that you buy, whether it's your Adobe Creative Cloud account, your Articulate Storyline, your monitors, camera, lights, microphone, all of this equipment is now a business expense. So it's all being off, it's a business charge. So you can offset it. So you're not getting it for free, you are paying it, but it's somewhat coming out of your business. And that's a really good feeling as well, in the end, that you can kind of go, all right, so, it may not be a tax return, but you may be paying less to the tax man, We've got Tom, and he said, I'm in the middle of doing the yearly refresh. How often do you tend to do a big update on your portfolio website? To be honest, Tom, I update it as I get projects. If I want to add it to the website. So because I was doing the conference for nearly 6 months of the year, this year, I didn't put anything up, and that's fine. But I try and add things, like if I win a little award, or I'll just add it to the website. It doesn't need to be something that you're adding a ton to. Like these videos I'm applying now onto the blog functionality, which is serving a purpose. It's new content constantly for people who are subscribed to the channel. So I would say try and do it, instead of you having them all mount up and then put them up. I like to kind of do it at the end of a project. And I've got it in my contract that I can share at least one image of a project, and I can put their logo on my website. So most people have no problem with that. You're not giving away any IP, especially if you even share screens like the introduction, like the onboarding. No one really cares. People get really hung up by this stuff. Like I even went to one of my bosses and said, can I take some pictures? And he said, oh, well, as long as it's just a couple of pictures and you don't give away any of the content. And I said, yeah, I won't. I said, it's just, if I'm going to work here for 3 years, I want to showcase some of the things that I've worked on. Otherwise, I'm coming out of here without any portfolio and it's pointless, Absolutely. So just ask your boss,
Yeah. So for me, I would also prefer to do it as I go, because I think that if you were going to do a mass dump, it can be very overwhelming to you to do that. And then some of the descriptions may get a little lost because you've written 5 in a row and they all kind of start sounding the same. And so I feel like it's a better strategy to kind of do them as you get them.
It's fresh in your mind.
Yeah, that being said, I mean, I haven't added anything new to my portfolio in a little while. I did do a big overhaul of my site last year, and that was something that I had wanted to do for a long time. But I still try to contribute to the blog pretty regularly. Yeah. This year with COVID motivations has kind of been a bit of a dud. But for me, it's about sharing knowledge. Most of the people that come to my website are like, I mean, you're getting prospective employers as well, but most of the people that come to my website are other instructional designers and e-learning developers. And I learned that very early on. So I like to have content that other members of the industry can kind of learn from and grow from, or ask questions and engage.
Yeah. And Ashley's got a great site, guys. So I think I can imagine the people who have coming to you they've been following you for a long time. They know it's great content, and it's it's like I had a look. I was trying to kind of suss out where you were at. It's been a little while since I've been on your site. And Razor, who's out in Dubai, I know that because she tunes in quite a lot. She said, transitioning to full-time freelance, still working on getting a stable client base, but this is something I want to do full-time. So transitioning is a safe way of doing it, Razor. Just while you're in employment, it's going to be more work, but just try it. You might hate it, and then you'll regret going out alone. So if you can work on projects while you're working, sometimes you might have to go to your boss and say, can I take on freelance work? Sometimes you need to disclose things, sometimes not. But that's how I did it. Like I said, I was doing work for the eLearning brothers, and that was a great way to see how a company that I really looked up to. They've got a great product, do custom e-learning. So it's great to do that. Whereas now I actually don't work with companies. If a company reaches out and says, I'm looking for someone to work on my team, I don't do that work. I work for myself. And I want to talk a little bit about pricing, but not go into too much detail. But I'll talk about that in a minute, because that for me, once I understood that, changed everything. And I'm pretty sure
100%
you're the same.
Yeah.
I just want to bring some of these questions on very quickly, just so people don't think we're ignoring them. Don't value if there's a lag, if you tune back in, but can you talk about learning real value of business as opposed to the value of your business? Yeah, we can try and do that. Let's just say that Razor said something else. How do you know when you're ready? Okay, we're going to talk about that. Okay. So the value of business, that's actually quite a hard one. I don't know if there's a lag if you tune back in, but can you talk about the learning the real value of business as opposed to the value of your business?
I think learning, when I first started freelancing, I read all of the there's one, Do Cool Shit, I think is one of the books I read, all of Seth Godin's books on marketing. And I'm not a business person. I had a degree in linguistics and psychology. So I am working I'm participating in commerce, but I mean, that was all stuff that I had to learn about. And there was a big shift in my mindset when I did my first full year of freelance and realized how overwhelmed I was. And then I had to go back and do more research to find out, okay, well, it sounds scary to price myself this much more, but per hour, per project or whatever. But once you learned that as a concept, that was something that was going to help you out, you learn that there will be more jobs, there will be more employers. You can say no to projects if somebody doesn't want to pay your rate, and because they might not. Do you really want to work with somebody that doesn't value your time and effort? So I mean, a lot of it I had to learn.
Yeah. And I'm in exactly the same boat. I don't read as much, guys. So YouTube's really been my my go-to. The future, Chris Do. I just absorb his YouTube channel. That's FUTUR. So you should check that out. There's a guy called Ran Segal, and his channel is called Flux, FLUX. Great channel. These are design. Now, they're not L&D, okay? They are design channels. People may not like this opinion, but I actually think that what we do is very, very similar to what design agencies do. When you're a freelancer, a freelance designer is offering a very similar kind of service. And now with UX and different approaches, human-centered design and things like that, a lot of actually our processes are really coming together. So those are the kind of resources that I learned and gave me the confidence. Like you said, Ashley, if you charge too low, then when you're in it, it's like, oh, fuck, right, well, this has been a nightmare, and you'll just hate it. If you learn to value what your skill set is, if you value the years of experience, you've been in this game for a long time, Ashley. I'm about the same as you. Maybe not in e-learning, but certainly in L&D. I started out at Carnival Cruise Lines as a corporate trainer in like 1999. Me and you are old birds, though, in comparison to some of these guys. But and so I wasn't doing e-learning as such. I transitioned into it, but that's years worth of experience. That's that is what people are getting when they come to get services from us. You have to think about the investment that you're making each year on your equipment. I was talking about this with my wife yesterday. All the tools that I have. I've got a client who I'm working out whether to continue with a client right now, and it's about me. And this client's been with me for a long time from the start, where I didn't charge very much, and because I really loved what they were doing, I didn't want to increase my price range. But the thing is, I'm paying a lot of money for the tools that are creating his content right now, and I'm not doing it with any other client. I'm still doing it with him because he was one of my first clients, and it's overcoming that. It's working out that I don't want to do hourly rates anymore. And the likes of these tutorials, like the ones from the future, is he does a lot of role plays in which he goes through how to have conversations with clients. Whether it's a client, sitting down with a client, and you're saying, okay, what are you trying to achieve here? What's the value of that you're trying to achieve? Okay, so you're trying to make $1 million worth of change for $25,000. Do you see that might not be a very balanced? It's not very balanced, the amount of effort that's being put in to do that. So I've learned from these channels, even though they're design channels, to have better conversations with people and ultimately get better projects. and create better solutions from them, because you're really telling them things that they haven't really been able to identify themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of clients that just don't realize what goes into doing what you need to do for a project. So a lot of it is education. And there were clients that I had at the beginning that were nonprofits, et cetera. And I had a really like a pretty low rate, and I worked with them long term and ended up having those tough conversations about like, okay, well, I can sign on for another project, but just so you know, I'm increasing my rate by 25, 50%. And most often it was well received because they saw the value after having worked with me initially. And then you do have clients that don't get it, and you do need to break up with them. I mean, I haven't broken up with a ton of clients, but there are at least 2 or 3 that I can recall off the top of my head that I've had to just say, this isn't working out, and I think you would be better suited for someone else.
So what I'll say to you guys, and I really hope that this is the best advice that you'll hear, because it's advice that I got that really changed my mindset. So I was working for, I was quite a good position, earning quite a nice amount of money. And when you're full time, you're like, okay, so I'm worth, the company. So if you're in this game right now, you should have an idea just through the costing proposals and things, how much a company is actually charging you per hour, right? You should be able to work that out. If you don't know, you might want to you should know how much a project is. Certainly would you say your team do where you work, Ashley? Everyone knows how much a client. Yeah. So you know that a client is paying 27, 32, 35,000 for a course. Of course, I'm in Australia, so it's a different price point, but you know how much a course is coming in. It might be a lot less. So, it might be anything. So you have that idea, and you should be able to work out what the company has estimated as the amount of hour of effort that's going into that. So then you can probably work out, right, this company is charging about $300 an hour, and that is for every single touch point. So whether that's a business manager, whether that's a digital design manager, it then goes to a project manager, it then goes to an instructional designer, it goes to a digital designer who will make it pretty. Then we'll go to an LMS administrator. It then will go to some other person who will provide support, right? So you can work out that is what they're charging for your services. And I remember, Ashley, and I don't want to give too much away because I don't want to make you awkward, but make you feel awkward. But I know I had a friend say to me, don't charge less than $150 an hour. Right? They just said, don't. And I said, what? Am I worth that? Am I worth $150 an hour? And she said, yep. She goes, don't you charge any less than that, and you will not have any issues getting work. I said, really? $150 an hour? She said, Cath, you have to remember the money that's going into your tax, all the products that you're going to have to buy, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay. First client came along, $150 an hour, whatever it was. No problem. Yep, tick off. Happy days. Now, where I think a lot of people are falling down right now, Ashley, is they don't have that person who's actually going in there and saying, mate, you've got to work out your value of this business that you're running. And, and people are charging $25 an hour. There was a job I came across online, and I went mad because when I actually did the calculations, I said to the person, you're asking someone to charge, you're charging less than minimum wage once someone has paid their tax. Like, this is so insulting that you're asking for a qualified, and it doesn't even need to be a qualified. It can be, you don't have a qualification, but you have years worth of experience in this. You're asking for someone to do this work for this much. And this is where I kind of want to not start a revolution, but I'm sick of it. I want for learning designers to have the confidence to turn around and say, no, flip it on its head. Just say to them, how long would this take your in-house team to do? I guarantee you it wouldn't be that amount of time.
Well, and there's a reason why they're going outside of their in-house if they have an in-house. And I think a lot of it is clients not knowing, not understanding the value and return on investment. So it's an educational opportunity. And like I said, it's kind of like when you're shopping for a house, and if it's your first house, you see everything and you want to buy it. And then if somebody outbids you or it gets scooped up before you put in your offer, you're devastated. But there's always going to be more houses. And it's kind of the same with freelancing. Like if somebody is going to balk at your price, then I don't want to work with you. Then you are seeing the value in me. You came to me, you asked me for a quote. I gave you the quote. If it's too much, that's fine. Go find someone else. But I think that this is what this project is worth, and this is what the effort's going to take. And
this is the result that you should get at the end of this. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you don't want to pay that rate, then I don't want to work with you, because I still have to pay my taxes, and I have to pay myself my pension and my healthcare and all of the things that a full-time gig would really take care of for the most part for you. So I think I gave an example of at one point of, okay, take what you're earning at your full-time job and double it. Because most like at a minimum, double it, because most I don't know, government agencies, you're going to pay 30 to 50% in taxes, or you should be tucking away that much, because you could be in denial about how much you have to pay to taxes and put less aside, but then you'll owe more when you do your taxes. So 30 to 50%, plus you have to add on any of your savings that you want to have for retirement or for your long-term goals or what have you, and your healthcare. I mean, we're humans. We will eventually need to see doctors and
take time off, and just, you have to think about that rainy day.
Exactly. I know it sounds horrifying to a lot of people I've talked to in the past about freelancing are like aghast when you say how you kind of give them a little bit of an education on what they should be charging. Some people are like, oh yeah, totally, I get it. And then other people are like, really? I don't know. And then you always, when you raise a rate, you always send, or I used to send that initial quote email and kind of like, not sure how this is going to go over, but you kind of have to get over the feeling of like, okay, well, if they don't pick me, then that's fine. There's going to be other jobs.
Yeah. Brenton, what I'll say to you guys is, for those of you who don't work in an agency, right? Let's say you work in the police, right? Where I works at a very different pace. A lot of in-house. People don't even know how much the training costs. They just go day by day. They don't know how much it actually is costing. So I know this is where it's a little bit tricky. I'm going to give you an example, right? So this was a good one, Brenton. Can you ask about, can you talk about how to estimate hours a project would take? So I'll tell you that when I started, I had a client reach out to me, and she wanted compliance training. She wanted, I think, 5 modules, and it's laughable, but just bear with me. She wanted 5 modules, about 30 minutes each, and she had $12,000 to spend. $12,000 to spend. So this is just me straight out, and I'm doing freelance work. And I said to her, okay, freelance, why don't you just go and buy some off-the-shelf freelance compliance modules? Well, we really don't want to personalize them. And I said, okay, well, where are you at with your content? You know, trying to dig deep. Where are you at with your content? Well, you know, we're kind of developing it. I said, look, honestly, these are, you know, I said, and I was really naive. So this was kind of how I learned that price point when my friend said, you don't want to charge less than this. And I said, well, look, you know, to be honest with you, this is how much you'd be paying if you went to work for an agency, right? I mean, $12,000 is like half the price of what an agency would charge for one 30-minute module, compliance module. Look, I don't want to leave you in the lurch, you know, but how about we do this, that potentially I do, let's say I build these modules for you. I don't do anything fancy, all native functionality. I'm pretty much cutting and pasting. You provide every single image. You provide every single word. You even go to your legal team and you get every word signed off before it's developed, right? But you have to give me every branding element, every video, and I'm literally just churning it out for you. So this was, remember, this is me just fresh out going, how can I just start this? And even for that, for the client, it totally fell down. She couldn't get her shit together and get the, you know, it was, oh, we're still working on branding changes and we're doing this and we're doing that. And I just said, you don't even value how much time this is for $12,000, right? And that taught me a lesson that I actually think that people value you less if you charge less for this. And being able to say to them, let's work out how much your training costs. So I did this little calculator. I'm just going to bring it up because maybe it might help Brenton visualize this. But I did a little calculator and I put it on my website.
I do feel like the smaller the projects, the more
less respect
in price, the more kind of nickel and diming that's going to happen if the project goes on, the more scope creep that's going to happen. And those are the types of projects that I like to agree to hourly rates, is if I feel like there's going to be any potential for scope creep or they don't have their stuff together. That's the only time I want to go with an hourly rate, because I have trust issues.
And you'll learn very fast what to do and what not to do, right? And you know what? The only way you're gonna get better, and Ashley will have done it as well, is you screw up. You screw up on a project, you go, I'm never gonna do that again. Like my contract keeps changing. Every time I write a contract, I go, yep, I'm gonna put in there, I'm only gonna work with one person. I'm gonna put in there that, you know, once an item has been signed off, they have to pay me an hourly fee, even if it's a fixed project, because now this is change of scope. So you just get better and better.
Cycles.
So this was so what have I said here? I said I had a client use my quote calculator and they had an unachievable budget. And I asked, did you cost your training or were you given the budget? And the client said that they could do some high level calculations. So if they had difficulty finding someone to take on a project, they might be able to negotiate a larger budget. So I basically built this calculator somewhat for them, right? Mm-hmm. And I said here, you know, even if you look at the numbers that are here, so think about the inductions I used to do on the ships at Carnival. You know, there was tops 30 people in each session. So you think about number of training sessions per year, right? So if you think about an induction in most businesses, you might have 20 new sign-ons or 20 new employees. You might do it 10 times a year. It might be a full day that you do. You know, an hourly wage for a member of staff might be about $27. This is just me making it up. $55 for the instructor's wage per hour. Because you got to factor in that staff member isn't working. So you're actually losing money, or you've got to replace them somehow out in the workplace, right? Travel expenses per day. Sometimes companies pay that, right? So let's say we leave that blank, okay? Facility rental. Again, companies will go, but we own the property. Well, it's still costing you money. You know, you could be doing something in that space. So let's say $300 for the whole day is a fairly standard thing. Material costs. They forget about materials, right? So by the time you've printed off all your policies and they give you that nice hardback folder and a CD-ROM, and they might give you all the bump, it might end up costing $50 per person, you know? People don't think about it. So let's just say $20, okay? An equipment cost per day. So by the time you get all of your equipment and you break it down over that whole period, it might actually cost you about $150, okay, per training session, right? So that's $47,000. So for you to be able to sit with a client and go straight off the bat, and I hope this makes sense, Brenton, this is how I like to go, and in a lot of cases, have this conversation first with a client. They see, whoa, it's costing me 70 grand to do this course, okay? And so you've got 47,000 for the training, the logistics 7,000, it's costing them 54,000. So there's a bit of an argument there when the client comes to you and says, oh, but we've only got, 20,000 to do a course, or they've got a fairly low budget that's not really going to achieve much. I'm very blunt and honest with people. I sometimes say, look, you might as well just not do anything. It's a waste of your money. You're not going to get any kind of behavioral change for such a low budget. If you invest a little bit more, and remember, this is per year. That is a one-off fee to do e-learning. So I think what's your opinion on this, Ashley? I sometimes try and do the shock factor where I can get them thinking a little bit about actually what it's costing them. And this isn't, honestly, guys, this isn't 100% correct, okay? Yeah. This isn't going to be correct in every sense.
I've had a lot of conversations with clients about not understanding or recognizing the return on investment for creating e-learning when they're converting from something that was traditionally face-to-face. And the way I always try to explain it is that, okay, well, it costs, whenever you do a cohort of training, it costs travel and venue and all of the things that you kind of covered in your calculator there. And when you have the e-learning, you're going to be saving all of those costs. So, and becoming more accessible for a broader range of learners. So I don't really go at it from the blunt perspective. It's usually because I have a full-time gig at the time. And so, yeah. Okay, I'll say this once. And if you don't get it, yeah. No, that's fine. We don't have to talk about it anymore. But if I was freelancing full-time again, it would be a conversation that I would have to have regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you guys could...
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that people just don't realize the value in L&D a lot of the times. Even I've seen some job postings over the lockdown of even the university I used to work at. where they all of a sudden are in this mass panic to hire instructional designers to throw courses online because they're not doing face-to-face learning. And the job postings are like $38,000 to $47,000. And I'm just screaming at my monitor because I'm thinking, like, these people are people looking for a full-time job. And this is not like this pricing mechanism is doing a disservice to everyone in learning and development. You're setting us back. It just is so discouraging.
I think these conversations are really important. You know, I used to try and talk to business managers when I worked in an agency before, and I'd go, for God's sake, you know, talk to them about how much their training is costing them, because it will spark a light, you know, when they go, oh, well, this is just the budget that we've got. Well, you've got the budget to do this face-to-face right now, and it's costing you $100,000, but you just want to invest. You're really going with the lowest option, which is going to pretty much give you nothing, you know. And I kind of, well, I was very passionate in the space, so I would make a comment because I'm from the north of England and I can't control my mouth sometimes. And I'd say, well, they might as well just flush their money down the toilet because it's going to be a useless kind of solution, right? Or why are you even pushing e-learning? Push, you know, do a social media kind of strategy. Make posters, make a screensaver, you know, make a game. You know, this is pointless to make them just go through something that's like next. So I know that this is a lot, guys, but if you honestly stick to what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to kind of, not submit, but you don't have to appease people. You know how much things are worth. I mean, Brenton, estimating price and estimating hours is another thing that you might find difficult until you actually work in an agency because in-house things were a little bit more relaxed. You know, I certainly remember working in the government and they would take quite a long time to work on certain components, you know, whereas when I worked in an agency like you've got, Ashley, you would presumably have a strategy where you'll go to the instructional designer. Okay, how long do you think that's going to take for you to write that storyboard? How long do you think it's going to be to do the strategy or the course overview? And your digital designer, how long is that going to be for you to develop that? And you have those conversations before you actually go to the client and give them the quote, okay? Or it might be, this is the quote, this is the effort that we need to put in, but we need to stay within these parameters so that we can make a profit on this. You understand? So it's going to be hard as well for you guys to work this out. But I'm going to try and do some sessions in which I'm going to show as much as I can without giving, you know, it's hard because we're working different pricing strategies in different countries and things like that, but ultimately the output's the same. Modesir says, building that business case is key. Completely echo your thoughts. Yeah, I mean, what do you think? I think that's where it's a lot easier. And sometimes I actually say to people, do you know what? If you're working for an in-house, go and work for an agency where you're under pressure. You know, you've got that project manager who says, you've only got, where are you at with this project now? You've only got 3 more hours. You know, are we going to go out of scope with this? Because I need to speak to the client, you know, and how to manage scope creep and things like that. I mean, do you think working where you work at the moment in the agency, I keep wanting to say it, but I know I'm going to say it wrong. Traliant. Oh my God, I said it before. Traliant. Do you think that has prepared you when you've got a client that you're just like, boom, yep, I know how long that's going to take. I know the solution that's going to be. Yeah.
Our organization is extremely fast paced, and we use Asana for project management. And in our master template that we have hours that, based on our experience, we plugged into the master template how many hours each of those line items typically takes. And so we can very quickly look at that and say, oh, well, I need to implement a translation that's going to take me approximately this many hours to do. So if we have to charge the client for that because it's out of scope, then okay, at least 2 hours, maybe mark it up a little bit, and then whatever the translation costs are.
Yeah. So this is where it becomes really, if you're not used to that world, I'd say even try and consider to, even if it's not for a long time, try and get a job with an agency to suss out how they work, even to see if you've been in a gig, if you've been in one job, try and go out and try and work somewhere else. Freelancing is good with agencies because it's a temporary thing. You get to see their documents. You're like, oh, that's pretty nice. I like how they're formatting that. This system's cool. You know, I could see how I could incorporate that. So if anything, it's kind of like not stealing ideas, but you're getting to see good examples. And, you know, why not? If there's companies out there that you want to work for, that's a great way to start. You can. So I was lucky enough that and still today, every single job comes through my website. I've got a calculator there. Okay. So I find that works because it filters out people. It emails them a price. So it filters out the people who don't want to, who don't have the budget to work with me. And I found over the years, like I started out selling like a gold level course, which was like a storyline with no treatment on it. And then a medium level course, and then what I called a high level course. And you know what? I never wanted to do the low level course. So now I've got a really in between kind of level that I think is a good quality, good solution that I can give to clients. But it's all different, right? I mean, I'm just talking about e-learning. I do other things with clients as well. So it's working out what do I want to do, and whether it's, you know, whether you're a UX person, whether you're an e-learning designer like myself and do website development, fish around, go and see how people do things. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
No, I think it definitely has benefits to kind of see how different organizations are running their projects, especially if you're new to, if you want to go freelance, or if you are like me and understand very little about business acumen when I first started and all of the things I needed to know. There are definitely folks out there that, I mean, every organization does different things. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's really, it's something that you'll learn, and you know what, you'll make mistakes, and I make mistakes even now, but it is getting a lot easier, and it's fun. And you know what, even you'll even get into the position where, for example, I work with clients, and I generally don't work on a model like you're a massive company, so I'm going to mark you up in a huge way. I don't generally do that. And I say generally because I do have those jobs that come through that really tug on the heartstrings, though, like suicide awareness. You know, I had a friend who took her own life, and for some reason, if anything came through, it's just like, oh, you know, I want to, whatever I can do to help you, whatever your budget is. So sometimes being open to do those jobs that mean something to you, it's like good karma, unlike what happened this morning in the news.
Yeah. one of the projects that I'm working on the side. It's a good karma type of project, and it's taken much longer than they had originally projected, as all things do in higher ed and government. But it's one of those that at the end of the day I'll feel very good about.
Yeah, I think that there are people who actually do need our skill set and don't have. I reached out to, there was a young boy who was murdered in Australia called Daniel Morecambe. Oh, here you go. John Hinchcliffe's on. Karma for the win. Daniel Morecambe was a young boy who was taken off the side of a street, and he was by a man, and he was killed. And they've got the Daniel Morecambe Foundation. And I actually didn't know much about the story, and I saw something on the news, and I actually wrote through the contact form, hey, just putting it out there, if you ever want to do any content for on this topic, you just reach out to me and I'll do it for free. I won't even charge you. No, they never got back to me. It might be one of those cases that in 5 years I get an email saying, yeah, we're ready for you now. But I think it's really good to have that kind of work as well, that you do that kind of, is it pro bono? Pro bono.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
So what I'll say to you guys is we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, and we've taken up a lot of Ashley's time. These conversations are never going to stop, right? I'm going to continue to have these conversations with, no matter who I've got on. I'll have Ashley on again. Of course I will, because I love Ashley. She's brilliant. And we've known each other a long time. I'm actually upset that I'm not going to see you at DevLearn this year. I've said this to so many people. I'm like, oh. Mike Taylor has said, I'm not going to get your yearly hug at DevLearn. I'm so sad. But are you doing DDX this year?
I'm not. No.
You're not?
I just kind of bowed out for. The 2020.
We talked about this before.
Been a bit of a struggle, and so this year I said, I'm going to hit pause.
So you're doing tech knowledge?
Nope.
No.
No,
you did tech knowledge.
I did tech knowledge this year. Yeah, but
I
didn't apply for really.
Didn't apply.
Few things this year.
I really, and I think we spoke about this actually when we did the show, because you were on the show, weren't you? I felt like, I don't think this is going to be ready. I'm happy to go to Vegas if it's all clear, because I love Vegas so much. We go to Palm Springs afterwards, you see, and it's I love Palm Springs. We didn't go. We're not going, obviously. So I'm looking forward to the virtual experience. Hopefully next year we'll get to see each other, Ashley.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I love DevLearn, so I can't wait to get back when we can safely do so.
Yeah. Any last words of advice for these guys who are tuning in?
No, just if you're interested in freelancing, I think the best advice I can give is to do whatever you're comfortable doing. Plan accordingly. If that means saving up a quitting fund or like several months of income before you make the leap, then do that. If it means I just want to get out of my job and start freelancing right now, do that. Just kind of go with your gut and absorb all of the advice that the learning and development community can impart, because there's a lot of it going on out there on LinkedIn, on the instructional design subreddit. You have a lot of different venues for receiving this type of advice.
Yeah, and John, I shouldn't forget John, because he's playing quite an important role at the moment, not only within the LinkedIn community, because of course he does his meetups and everything. Everyone knows John, but John now is the talent manager at Jampan. And, for those of you who are, wanting that safe way to start to work out, is this really my thing? Reach out to John, go on to Jampan, create a profile. It costs nothing. And, if there's work that basically is aligned with your skill set and the tools that you use, he'll get in touch. But he's really a cool guy. He's like Ashley, right? Ashley's details are in the footer. I have changed them. You're no longer Mike Taylor, actually.
I appreciate being known as Mike Taylor, but I will never be Mike Taylor.
But reach out to John. He's super nice. And reach out, have a look at Ashley's website. It's full of content. And this COVID, I say this in every episode, has really brought out the best in people, especially our industry. We're sharing so much. Mudasir, hashtag closing thoughts. Mm-hmm. Razor, lovely discussion. John, always happy to help anyone. Absolutely. So guys, enjoy your weekend. Ashley, I know you've got a full day's worth of work today. So take it easy. Here in Australia, we've got a long weekend in Queensland. So if anyone's tuning in from Queensland, lucky. But I'm just going to take it easy this weekend. And thank you very much for your time, Ashley. I appreciate it. Every time I talk to you, I love it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to sign off. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions and comments, put them below. If you liked it, like it. If you want to leave a comment, you know what to do. All right. Take it easy, guys. Bye.